This lady thought it was a good idea to open an umbrella at a concert, by user mutilate. It was an outside rock concert of a pretty popular local band. There were a lot of people and we were all standing, watching the show. Then the smallest rain starts, I kid you not, a couple of drops. Well, a woman opens an umbrella and blocks the view for like 50 to 60 people, maybe more. We were in a crowd, so changing places wasn't a simple solution. People start booing, some even push her umbrella, but she just hangs to it and won't close it. I'm a pretty tall dude and she was around 5 feet 6 inches. You probably see where this is going. I stand right in front of her, blocking her completely. I can hear her being mad and complaining to her boyfriend, whose answer to her was, well, he kind of has a point, this is what you're doing to the people behind us, which really made me smile. They talk about a minute or two and then the boyfriend tells me, okay, can you move? She'll close the umbrella. The rain stopped quickly and the rest of the show went smoothly. Sit there laughing at me at the petrol station? I'll inconvenience you even more, by user Welsh__dresser. This was a few years ago. I pulled into my local petrol station, all the pumps were in use, so I pulled up behind one of the pumps waiting for the van, using it to finish and move off. After quite a few minutes, the driver casually strolled out of the shop in no hurry, despite the queue at the busy forecourt, and walked to his van. He could see that I and several other vehicles were queuing to use the pumps. The van driver in the pump next to him was obviously a friend. That driver finished up and the two of them stood and had a chat. They were aware of us waiting and were clearly loving the fact that they were holding us all up, even turning to laugh arrogantly at the guy waiting next to me who called to them to move away from the pumps. This went on for 5 minutes more until they got bored of their silly game and drove off. The moron was a plasterer and had his name and phone number written all over his van, plying his trade. Oh boy! I'm petty, and made a note of his details. A few weeks later, I called him up and said I'd bought a house in need of renovation and needed a quote to board out and skim the entire house. Oh, he was only too happy to quote for a big project, assuring me he was great at his trade and I could not find a better quote. We discussed his availability and he was keen to come and look at the job. I gave him the address of a run-down house a few streets away from me that had recently sold at auction. He knew the property, he had driven past it a few times and noticed it was up for auction. We arranged for him to call the following day. Of course, I wasn't there. He rang a few times and left a voicemail checking where I was. Eventually, I called him back, very apologetic, said my husband had fallen off a ladder and I had to take him to A&E. He said okay, I'll rearrange the visit. We arranged another time a few days later. The next appointment came and I had 2 more messages from him, clearly annoyed I wasn't there again. I called him back again and apologized. I said I could totally understand his anger and wasted time. It reminded me of the time I was sat at a petrol station a few weeks ago and some idiot and his mate stood having a good OLE chat whilst laughing at the drivers waiting to use the pumps. I heard the penny drop. That was when the raging and swearing started, which just set me off roaring with laughter. I made my point, it was fabulous. I spent the next few weeks blocking various numbers sending abusive texts, but he got bored of that eventually. I hope he learned that actions have consequences. The Day I Was Invisible, by user Blasty. Years ago I worked at a public school. The district assigned us a temporary administrator, a man who knew what was wrong with everyone and everything and just how to fix it all. He drove us up the wall. I spent his entire time with us making bets on who would be first to cram him into a locker. One thing he hated was how other people would go to deal with things, leaving the command center, the office, instead of commanding. One day he walked into the office and the receptionist was in the restroom, the principal was in a meeting, and the office manager had gone to look at something. I, the registrar, was working head down at my desk. That man walked into the middle of the room and announced on the radio, to 15 people, criticizing all of them including the principal in her meeting, "This office is completely empty. What if a parent walked in?" He was 5 feet from me. I picked up my radio and said to him and 15 other people, "drive____, I'm right here. Hi. Your glasses are on your head, sir." Small, but very satisfying. Brother-in-law ruins his son's Nintendo Switch, by usercomsquat4201. So my brother and I went together and bought a Switch for my 2 young nephews last year for Christmas, along with several accessories. And to say they love it is an understatement. They adore this thing, and love talking their uncles about all of the games they've been playing. It actually makes me happy to see as it reminds me of my brother and I when we were younger. We bonded a lot playing games growing up. So I guess one day they were outside bored. And as kids do, had a not so great idea or intrusive thought and carved both of their names into the side of their father's truck using a rock. Now, this isn't a very nice truck and is really just used to get around the property, but he was very upset nonetheless. He's telling me about this happening just the other day and I say to him, "You know, I made sure to put a screen protector on the switch we gave them." He just stared at me. So if someone were to write on it, it wouldn't hurt it. Skip to now and the Nintendo Switch has in big bold letters "Dad" right across the screen. They were mortified. I'm sure he'll leave it on for a good couple weeks before telling and removing it to make sure it doesn't happen again. You block my driveway? Fine, I'll block your van, by user_Vladi. This happened some years ago, but I still remember the situation very clearly. My house has a garage next to it and a driveway to get out of my property and onto the street. The street in front of my house is rather narrow, 2 cars can't pass each other safely, and there are no sidewalks. Next to the street are walls. In that area people like to build small stone or concrete walls around their property, not really high, 50 cm, but high enough to make it a barrier for cars and such. There are no official stopping restrictions, but due to the narrow street and the numerous driveways it's obvious that parking on the street is a really bad idea. Next to my property is a restaurant that gets stuff delivered every now and then. The kitchen entrance is next to our driveway. The delivery drivers usually park on the parking area across the street so they won't block traffic. The street is used by residents mainly, so there is not much traffic anyway. On one particular day I had to leave quite urgently as I was heading to the town hall to pick up some documents like my new identity card. Exactly on this day a delivery driver decided to park his van next to my driveway just to save some meters of walking. He didn't block my driveway, but I couldn't exit my property. Backing up to get out wasn't an option either because of the concrete walls. When he came out to pick up the next box I kindly asked him to move his van. He denied and pointed out that he turned on his hazard flasher, as if they are entitling him for parking wherever he wants. He continued delivering and left me kinda annoyed because of this entitlement and stupidity. Cue petty revenge. I was sitting in my car, still blocking half the street as I couldn't get out. The delivery driver finally finished his job, started his van and wanted to move forward so he wouldn't have to back up, which obviously was a pain in his ass. He gestured to move away. I could have backed my car 2 or 3 meters so he could pass me and do a U-turn further down the street, but I didn't. I switched off my engine and switched on my hazard flasher. You could literally see how we went from annoyed to fuming angry in a split second, which made me laugh even more. After shouting out some profanities he realized I won't move, so he had to back up like 300 meters while still yelling and ranting profoundly. XD. I was late for picking up my documents, but couldn't stop grinning the whole day.